Jerome Powell just crashed the market, and we're going to get into the charts, but I wanted to show you guys the trade that I took to play this downfall. I pay attention to tons of stocks, but one of them when I was clicking through was Amazon. And Amazon, I noticed there was a nice triple divergence starting to form on both the MACD and the RSI at the same time. And triple divergence is really, really strong. So I really like that. And what do I do from there? I just start drawing my ideas. Okay, so I say, okay, if I break this level, I'll be good. And we can play that to the downside. And then my risk to reward here is we're going to go up for another touch here. So I entered my position here, meaning my risk was that this was going to come up to here and possibly, stop me out. But my reward was actually the fact that if this did come down and touch the bottom of here, and then I saw a bounce, I could get out of that position. But since I didn't see a bounce here, I can then play it to the downside even more. Okay, so I took my short right here and I wanted to form some kind of price target. And my price target for this, if you just line this up real quick, we get to about 118.59, and that's a pretty far drop. And considering that all of the shorter time frames in the SPY and all these other stocks and in Amazon are very oversold, I didn't want to take profit there. I want to take profit a little sooner, especially since this move is going so well, so fast. So I actually went for this gap fill, and I was like, okay, if it touches that gap fill, which it looks like we're going to do, I am 100% going to take profit on my shorts. When a trade goes really well, really fast, I do like to take profit in case there's any kind of bounce coming because of those shorter time frames. So I actually took profit right around 130.70, which was enough because this was a fast move to 10x my position in just a few days. So that's just a peek into how I set up and start to take a trade, but I just wanted to show it to you guys because it looks so clean. This is exactly the kind of things you are looking for that trend to go the other way and start to produce the downfall that we've been looking for a few weeks. If you were subscribed, give yourself a thumbs up. And if you're not, please think about it so you can give yourself a pat on the back the next time we find something like this. Now, we did say the day before that announcement, we saw that wick coming out, but that's not what we were looking for. We said it over and over. We want a solid, firm closing of a daily bar below this triangle here to give us some direction, and now we're seeing that play out to the downside. If you were following the channel and you found this information helpful, you get a big thumbs up, but I'm going to erase that right now so we can talk about it. Okay, so what we said a couple days ago was we weren't really worried about this wick right here because it bought right back up. What we wanted to see was a firm closing bar outside of our triangle to the downside that would then tell us some direction, and that's exactly what we got. And I put a video out last night to tell you guys that. So hopefully you guys caught that. I even told you that this thing is most likely going to gap and go lower tomorrow, and that's exactly what has happened so far. Even though it looks like it is dropping like a brick, and it still could drop like a brick out of the sky because this thing is closing on the low, which is opening the door for us to come and touch down in here, but we are outside that monthly expected move. We are hitting, well, we actually passed what I would consider the neckline, but possibly your neckline is moving down to here for your head and shoulders. And we could see some kind of bounce as we look at shorter time frames. What I like to do when I'm looking for a bounce is I look at the 15-minute and then I look at the 30-minute as well. Those are the two that I mostly use to see some short-term bounces. And as you can see, we have a MACD down here that's looking like it wants to curl over one more time. So we could see further downside tomorrow. But the biggest deal for me is, what do we say about gaps? Okay, what is it? 80% of the time, these gaps like this will be filled within the next 5 trading sessions. That means that we could see some people who are trying to catch it early and say, oh, this isn't the right direction. Maybe they think the price of this stock is good. And then we see a bounce up to possibly fill that gap within the next 5 trading sessions. What I see happening is this MACD right here is going to curl over, and we are going to see a little bit more downside that then gives us some kind of divergence to then bounce us back up to then either fill this gap now or possibly go get the retest from that triangle that we just broke out of. I would be very careful trying to catch a bounce, even though we're hitting this little spot here that I have marked, possibly for my point for the head and shoulders. This thing could sell further to the downside, especially in the Qs, because we are not outside of that monthly risk range right now, and we could go all the way down to here by the end of September before we see any kind of bounce. So we want to be very careful in paying attention to the momentum that we're seeing in front of us. As we look at the shorter time frame, we're dinking right on that spot, and this MACD looks like it wants to curl over one more time. So maybe in the morning we see some kind of selling. If we do see some kind of divergence build up, just know that there is a ton of downward pressure, and most likely every single bounce that we get from here on will be met with sellers. That doesn't mean that we can't get some kind of bounce, come and fill this gap right up in here, and then maybe this is where our sellers will be lurking, and then we'll see that another dramatic drop to the downside. One thing that's telling me that we could see some kind of bounce in the next day or two is just Apple. I mean, if we do not see this dramatic sell-off continue, you can see we are oversold on almost every chart I brought up. We are seeing Apple come down into its last point of support here, which I would consider these lows right here. So Apple, even though we're seeing that dramatic sell-off, Apple actually hasn't even cut those lows that we were talking about a week ago. So what you could see is Apple come down into here, and we find some kind of divergence here with the MACD and the RSI at the same time, and then that maybe projects us up enough to get some steam behind us to go fill that gap, and then we see that sell-off continue. But you still want to be careful with these bounces, okay? Every single bounce from now, the trend has changed. We are now heading to the downside, so every bounce is going to be met up with sellers everywhere. One thing that's going to get dramatic very quick is Tesla. Tesla has not even confirmed on this MACD, and we are dinking right off of this 50. Maybe we do get some ground here enough to fill the gap, maybe even project us to a retest or even our trend line going way back. But overall, you just need to know with Tesla, most likely this move is going to repeat itself. So we are probably seeing Tesla go somewhere to the, let's give you a little target here. We're most likely seeing Tesla go to somewhere around 192.46. But overall, I just told you that I would be looking for Tesla to meet up with its 200-day moving average. That is where I think it is headed in the near future. But hey, Tesla traders, I'll give you a thumbs up too. If you were subscribed, we told you that once this channel breaks, even though we did see that big pop higher, once this channel breaks and we get that closing daily bar below it, we are going to see dramatic downside. And you can tell I'm not lying because we gapped down the next day, losing about 2.62% in one day. If you are looking to get out of a possible position that you maybe were long on, we could see this come up, but we are seeing very dramatic selling. So we could see this thing get really heavy to the downside, especially when that MACD fully crosses. I don't want to get your hopes up and say, oh, this thing is going to bounce up tomorrow. It very well could, but it does look like this MACD down here on the 15-minute does want to curl down one more time. And if you do see that divergence forming, you want to be very careful and take profit maybe a little earlier, because like I said, every bounce is going to be met with selling, whether it's like that or like this. Every single bounce, no matter how small or big it is going to be met with sellers. You're pretty much in a headwind right now. Save the VIX for last, so stay for that. But the yields are going ballistic, and we told you that the market was going to get super bloody once we got a full closing bar outside of our top here, up here in the unknown. If we get a closing bar up there, it's going to be bad. That's what I've been saying for a week or two now. And guess what? That exactly happened. And today we saw that just multiply. Okay, this thing is moving up very rapidly, and the longer we stay up here, the more pain that we're going to see ahead. On TLT, the correlated or the inverse correlation to the 10-year yield, we haven't necessarily hit that target of 88.14 yet. That's kind of what I'm gunning for. Overall, with TLT, I just want you to pay attention to any downside. Now that we're below this low, you can look for that low and lower low, and then you can look for a low and a higher low with the MACD creating some kind of divergence. I believe that this will be a very, very good trade for people in the future. And the last thing I wanted to go over was the VIX. We got that closing bar above the 50. We got that cross on the MACD way down here yesterday. And that's mainly why I put out that very short video, just telling you plain and simple, hey, we're going to crash down lower. We're most likely going to gap down tomorrow. I just wanted to get that out there very quick and not give you a bunch of information, because I feel like that would kind of cloud how you're thinking about things. All you need to know is VIX is closing above 50. And then the next step is, can we get above the 200? You notice that a lot of times we'll see wicks like this around the 200. So it would not surprise me in the least to see a couple days of possible, people buying and get some kind of bounce, because this 200, we do like to react off it. Maybe we get a short retest. And once we do solidify that retest and maybe even retest off of our 50 coming up, then we can see that volatility really start to spike. The main takeaway from this video is we are crashing just like we said. Once we start to break those levels, we're going to crash, and that's exactly what happened. So hopefully you were subscribed and you got that information. But overall, I just want you to pay attention. Because we are crashing does not mean we can't get a bounce soon, and it doesn't mean that we can't keep crashing. That's why I'm not going to be fishing for a bounce. This is very dramatic, and I want to wait till things kind of fizzle out before I take any kind of bounce trade to the upside. Most likely I am going to be waiting for those bounces to fizzle out and then playing them to the downside. I hope you guys had a very great day trading. I hope you were able to catch some of these trades that were lining up for you, and I hope you have a good night. Peace.